Which celebrity have you lost total respect for, and why? Prince Andrew, for minor reasons. Eric Clapton, he's responsible for rock against racism in the sense that he is the racism they were rocking against, not that he organized it. He refused to play any venues that required masks/vaccines, and recently sued a German senior citizen for selling a bootleg Clapton album that belonged to her deceased husband. He'd purchased it from a German department store. She had it listed for like $12. Allison Mack from Smallville. She was a leader in a cult that exploited women and made them sex slaves. Currently in prison. Chris Brown. The whole he hit Rihanna thing was downplayed in the media. Read the actual police report and you'll see that he tormented and even attempted to kill her. And this man is still walking and making music and garnering fans. Really does make me sick. This whole thread is making me wonder why people idolize celebrities in the first place. Danny Masterson. Thought he was cool, but later found out he is a higher up in Scientology and got away with raping the wife of Cedric Bixler-Zavala, singer of the Mars Volta, and poisoned 2 of his dogs. Anyone that we find had ties with Epstein. I'll mention a group, actor Scientologists. When the whole Scientology news exploded roughly 8 years ago, I lost all respect. Ian Watkins of Lost Prophets. O.J. Simpson. He was so clearly phoning in his performance in The Naked Gun 33 1/3 and didn't do Nordberg justice. I was so put off that I completely stopped following his career after that. Elizabeth Moss, how do you play the main character in a show like The Handmaid's Tale, yet practice Scientology in your personal life? I don't get it. At 13 I thought Onision was alright. Ha God, was I wrong. I've lost all respect for him and more. T.I. that dude was cool until he said he was getting his daughter checked for her virginity. Oprah. She did a special once on the Holocaust, but made it all about her. It was very distasteful. We watched it back in high school, and even the teacher turned it off. To be fair, I had never watched her or her show before, but that experience soured her for me. Nick Cannon. Anyone that worked with Polanski after he raped a 13-year-old. Still went on to win Oscars etc, and actors, writers, and producers all still totally fine with supporting someone like that. Drake Bell. I loved Drake and Josh growing up, so I thought he was a pretty cool guy. Then OFC everything came forth recently about him being a pedophile, and apparently he has also been grifting people with cryptocurrency even more recently. I have no respect left for the man at all. Bill Cosby. He wasn't like Cliff Huxtable at all. Madonna. Ever since I found out she dumped her 3 chihuahuas at a dodgy kill shelter, and one of them died after having its face mauled, while the other 2 were basically starving by the time they were rescued. She was literally Madonna. She could have found them a good home. Or literally hired someone just to care for them. If you discount all the actual rapists and rape apologists and flat out racists, I'd say Andy Dick. I never respected Andy Dick, but I grew to hate him over time. Hollywood in general is full of disgusting people, but he seems to take the cake for being an abysmally disgusting and horrendous person. Edit. I didn't know Andy Dick was a groper/assaulter, my bad. Just makes him even more of a gross person. I would say Jeffree Star, but I never had respect for him in the first place. Elle Macpherson. She chose the lying conman Andrew Wakefield? What the actual fuck? Mason Greenwood. As a Manchester United fan, heartbroken. But hope his ex gets the justice and recovers. Jared Leto. Huge piece of shit. Billy Corgan. The Smashing Pumpkins was one of my all-time favorites, but god, he is such a doucher bag. Mary Akari is a complete cunt to food service workers. Gwyneth Paltrow. She told women to steam clean their vaginas and made a candle that smells like her own vagina. Just lots of no thanks for me. Joss Whedon. Dude was my idol as a storyteller for almost 2 decades. Firefly, Buffy, Angel, Dollhouse, Cabin in the Woods, etc. all were very near and dear to my heart. Then the cascade of stories about what a sadistic asshole he is, how he constantly mistreated his actors and writers, how he was such a serial cheater, and how he reacted to it all. I still respect his work. I do not respect the man. Shia LaBeouf used to be a huge crush of mine, but after seeing his extremely public drunk and abusive spells, and reading the court documents of his abuse to his ex-GF, I can never look at him the same. Tyra Banks. The way she exploits and abuses vulnerable contestants for views. Disgusting. It goes deeps. She's as bad as Wendy in her own way. So, this one is an entirely personal issue. But I used to work at a hotel and Jerry Seinfeld was staying there while doing a show, and he was incredibly rude. Yelling at staff about mild inconveniences and stuff. Basically he went full Karen, even said that he'll never use this hotel chain again. In his defense, this all happened late at night, after he was returning from a show, so maybe he just was having a bad night, so I don't want to say he's a terrible person. Just he was very rude to me and my coworkers, and it's left a bad taste in my mouth ever since. The list is way too long, but let's start with the Epstein flight logs. Allison Mack. Need I say more? Honestly? John Mulaney. Goes on a bender, tells his wife he doesn't want kids, leaves her, and pretty quickly after that has a baby with Olivia Munn. There's a lot more to it, but it doesn't make him look any better. Michael Penner, when I heard he was a Scientologist. Travis Scott, couldn't even fathom to say I'm sorry. This pandemic showed a lot of celebs to be self-centered and out of touch. I lost respect for everyone in that awful Imagine rendition. Imagine no possessions, they sing, while sitting in their billion-dollar mansions. Meanwhile the rest of us are losing our jobs. For someone not already listed here, I'll go with Ellen. Used to respect her a lot for being a trailblazer before everything came to light in 2020. I find it difficult to really feel connected to someone who sings about how we are all in this together, yet they need to drive a small vehicle to go from one side of their property to the other so they can enjoy their pool. Emma Roberts. I love American Horror Story, but I have such a beef with her after she beat up her ex-boyfriend. I just hate all abusers, but nobody talks about it enough. Steven Seagal. Because he is the world's worst actor bar none. Kevin Spacey. Pissed with Robin Williams for dying before I could hug him. I think the overall takeaway from this thread is don't put anyone on a pedestal. You don't know anyone 100% besides yourself, and even that can change. Everyone's flawed in some way. James Franco. I've thought of him as a good actor, but after I've seen that he's a sexual predator, my respect gone downhill. Chevy Chase. Just hearing about how unprofessional he was throughout making Community. Fortunately for the show's sake it's so good and elevated itself beyond his reputation. But makes me lose all interest in things he's done before and might do in the future. Dan Schneider. He created a ton of shows on Nickelodeon that I loved growing up, but he's a disgusting man that more than likely molested a lot of young female stars growing up. Nicki Minaj. She seems like a bully to other celebs, Cardi B, who she thinks is trying to steal her crown, and also the alleged allegations about her baby's father and her defending his criminal activity. A lot of these people I'm surprised people had respect for in the first place. Like most celebrities have something of a niche skill, so having a heightened sense of respect for them as a whole doesn't seem wise. Troy McClure. You may remember him from films such as The Electric Gigolo, Hydro, The Man with the Hydraulic Arms, and The President's Neck is Missing. I hear the man sleeps with the fishes. Nick Cannon for expounding the racist conspiracy theory that Israel stole the Jewish identity from African people. Chris Noth and Kevin Spacey for obvious reasons. They were such great actors, but I could never watch anything with them again. It's a shame. Dr. Phil, after seeing him tell a victim of domestic violence you don't ever, never, ever put your hands on a woman in anger, and telling him to just walk away if she attacks him because he tried to defend himself. Fucking Leto. As a kid he was great in 30 Seconds to Mars, like god and what a voice. Then I found out he could act when I saw Requiem for a Dream. Now he's a cringe fest at best. Marilyn Mason, after all his victims came forward. Mariah Carey after her tea meltdown at the New Year's Rockin' Eve Fest, and how we had to wait for her to perform the last song of the evening and this bitch wouldn't come out because she didn't get her tea and had to restart the song at least once. If I remember correctly it was a while ago. But I absolutely can't stand her. Ellen DeGeneres. Her coming out was a huge moment in American gay rights, and then she turns out to be so toxic to her staff and guests. Chrissy Teigen. I used to think she was a funny, quirky, semi-relatable celebrity. Always tried to appear down to earth. But a grown adult telling a teenager to kill themselves isn't bullying. It's harassment and you have to be sick in the head to say something like that. I regret buying her cookbooks. James Corden. Tiger Woods. Cheats on his wife and repeatedly drives under the influence. He got away from his last crash without a warrant for a blood test, even though the facts and circumstances clearly show some sort of impairment. I used to be a huge Demi Lovato fan. I mean huge. But it seems like they continue down the same path of self-destruction. It goes, releases new album, claims they are sober mid-era they will either relapse or something happens, they get help, new music again, talks about how they've changed and are better. It's an endless cycle. I think if they disappeared from the industry, I would respect them more. They still likely have millions, and can retire quietly to never work again. Demi surrounds themselves around yes men. Also Demi is an asshole, Google Demi Lovato Froyo, and thinks the world revolves around them. Every single celebrity in the stupid Imagine cover they did at the start of the pandemic. Adolf Hitler. Once you get past his okay artwork you find out the guy was a real jerk.